Hey guys, good morning. Welcome back to math. We're going to focus on the next three lessons. It'll be lesson 9, 11, and 12. And then on Friday, we'll take a quiz on only these three lessons. And what you also do is do a review on Thursday before the test, and the test will be on Schoology like it was the last time. And during our Zoom meeting today, I will go over the testing procedures and how to do everything that you need to know on how to do that. All right, so let's get started with this lesson. It is going to be chapter 10, lesson 9. This is on dividing fractions. So first I'm going to show you how to divide fractions in two different ways, and then I'm going to do it only by models today, and then we'll work on doing it mathematically the next time. All right, before we start off, we need to understand what a fraction is. So a fraction is a part of a whole number. And for this lesson, we're learning about what a unit fraction is, which is a fraction with a denominator of 1. Sorry, a numerator of 1. So that means that 1/9 is a unit fraction. 1/10 is a unit fraction. 1/3 is a unit fraction. As long as it's a fraction with a numerator of 1, it is considered a unit fraction. So let's take this picture of a whole rectangle and ask ourselves a couple of questions. The first one I want to know is how many 1/5 are going to be in this one whole? So Amut, if you were to look at this picture and you were to ask yourselves, how many 1/5 could I get out of this one whole? What would you do? You're right. You would have to divide this shape into fourths or fifths. So I'm going to just draw 4 lines, and that's going to divide this into 5 equal pieces. And then Amut, how many would each piece equal? Very good. It would equal 1/5. So 1/5 would be each piece that I just divided into. So the question here that says how many 1/5 are in one whole? Well, the answer is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. So my answer is 5. Now, how many in 3 whole? So the question now becomes how many 1/5 in 3 whole? So this case, we are looking at taking 3 whole numbers and doing the same thing 3 times. That also means I can kind of think of this question as a 5 times 3. And 5 times 3 equals 15. So how many in 3 whole? 15. There are 15 1/5 in 3 whole. A couple of things to think about when you're looking at your fractions and determining what part is which. So the denominator is the number on top, and it is also known as the dividend. So for our division problems, this would also be written as 5 divided by 1. And then what we do is we take, or even this way, and then we take the dividend is always going to be the first number in the division or the number underneath the table of this division sign. And then the denominator is also known as the divisor, which is the second number in the division problem. And it's also the bottom number in the fraction. And the bar that you have here in the fraction is just telling you that you're going to do division. So just kind of giving you a little background information about fractions before we move on. All right, one more practice here. Lewis, if I was to take 2 divided by 1/3, this is actually asking me how many 1/3 are in 2 wholes. So this is what this division problem breaks down. So Lewis, what would you do on this picture of these 2 rectangles here to show how many 1/3 are in 2 wholes? Correct. You would divide this shape into 3 parts and this shape into 3 parts. And each part would be equal to the same amount, which is 1/3. And how many times am I writing this 1/3 in each of these pieces? I am writing it 6 times. So the answer to how many 1/3 are in 2 wholes is 6. All right, let's look at a word problem that deals with this kind of same idea of how to divide fractions. So in our word problem here, Remy has 2 gallons of lemonade. She needs to divide the lemonade into 1/4 gallon containers. How many 1/4 gallon containers does she need? So what we need to look here is we need to identify some key parts. One, she has 2 gallons of lemonade. And the second key part is that she's going to divide, so that's very clear that we're doing division, the lemonade into 1/4 containers. And so what we really need to focus on is what is the question asking? So in this particular question, the question is asking us how many containers. So we're looking for a total number of containers. That's also a big key word when we're doing real life word problems, that if we're having an object that we're searching for, we're probably not going to have a portion of that object, especially things like containers. We won't have a fraction of a container to hold something. So what are we finding? We are finding 2 divided by 1/4. So this is again the other way of thinking about this, what this problem is saying, which is how many groups of 1/4 are in 2. So you can say it that way as well. All right, now Maya, if you were to do example number 2, think about how you would do it. So you're going to place enough 1/4 fraction tiles below the 2 whole fraction tiles to represent the same amount. So the first thing we would do is look at the denominator, you are right, and then determine how many parts I would need. If the denominator is 4, I'm going to need to have 4 parts in my whole. So Maya, how would you make 4 parts? Excellent. You're going to draw 3 lines in the hole in both of these parts, and then you're going to write the fraction, which is what, Maya? Very good. It is 1/4. And in each one, we're going to determine how many times did I write 1/4 in each one of these boxes. And for that answer, Maya, you would say 8. Fantastic. So 2 divided by 1/4 is 8. And to end this, Remy's going to need 8 containers. So you're going to get a whole number. All right, so that was this type of fraction, 2 divided by 1/3. That gives me a whole number. This is very important to remember when we get into the other way of dividing. So how can you check a division answer with fractions? Well, you're just going to make another problem that is similar, but in a multiplication version, right? The inverse operation. So first I want to say, first I have to solve for this problem. So how many 1/4 are in 5 whole? So I'm going to divide each of these pieces into 4 parts. Each of them have 4. I have 5 total. That's a 4 times 5, which makes A equal to 20. And in this particular way of checking, you're going to multiply the quotient by the divisor, and then you're going to see if you get the dividend. So you're going to multiply the quotient. Here is the quotient, which is A is equal to 20. And then, whoops, this is not supposed to be here. And then you're going to multiply the divisor, which is 1/4, and to see if you're going to get 5. So if I plug in 20 where A is and multiply it by 1/4, I get 20 over 1. And then 20 times 1 is 20, and 1 times 4 is 4. And when I reduce this, Maya, or I take my improper fraction and make it into a mixed number, what do I get? Remember, I'm just trying to find out how many 4s are in 20. If I divide 4 into 20, I get 5. And therefore, they match, and this problem checks. Great job. All right, now let's look at division, how to divide in a little bit of a different way. So in this word problem, Ellen made a pan pizza with 1/2 of the pizza with pepperoni and the other half with cheese. She wants to cut the pepperoni part into 4 equal pieces. What fraction of the whole pizza will each pepperoni pizza be? So let's go back again and look for some of these key words. Daria, what is a key word that you see in this particular word problem? Very good. She has 1/2 of the pizza with pepperoni. And another keyword, excellent. She wants to divide the pepperoni part into 4 equal pieces. And finally, Daria, what is the question asking? The question is asking the fraction of the whole pizza will be pepperoni. So what fraction of the whole pizza? So we have to now divide our pepperoni, half of our pepperoni pizza into 4s. and then determine what that fraction would be for the entire pizza, including the cheese section. So this problem is a little different because it doesn't seem like we're going to be getting a whole number, and this key word right here, fraction, tells us that we're not. So let's see what we got. First problem was how many fraction pieces are in a whole. In this problem, I'm looking at asking what is 1/2 of the pizza and what would those parts look like if I divided the whole or the half into 1/4 parts. So I'm looking for a portion of how much the pizza would be if I divided half of the pizza into 4 equal parts. So let's do that first. Let's take these 4 parts, 1, 2, 3, 4, and divide the pepperoni size into 4 equal parts. So what we need to do is we're applying this to the whole pizza. So whatever I do to this half here, I'm going to also have to do to this half here. And so I need to divide this into 4 parts as well. This is now going to tell me what is the fractional piece of the whole one piece of pepperoni compared to the whole pizza. And the whole pizza is now divided into how many sections, Nathan? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Very good. Where would that go, Nathan? Very good. That's going to go at the denominator level. And then we're going to look at how many total pieces do I want to know about. We're looking at one fraction. We know that because that word is singular. And therefore, what is this one fraction equal to? Well, if there's 8 pieces and I'm only looking at one piece, excellent. You're going to make it 1 as my numerator. So 1/2 divided by 4. This is a different way of writing this. When you start with the fraction first, you're going to get a fraction answer. And that's because you're looking at a part of the whole instead of determining how many pieces in the whole. So now I'm taking 4, which the half is divided the whole into half. That's what the half represents. And then I'm going to divide 1/2 of the whole into 4 parts, which means I have to do this to the other part. So if I am dividing it into thirds, if this fraction in front was 1/3, then I would be dividing this whole into 3 parts and then each third part into fourths. So this is why I get the fraction as 1/8, and I'm going to get a fraction answer instead of a whole. So in the second part of the math example, very quickly, I'm just going to go over this where it's talking about find 1/5 find 1/5 divided by 2. So this is telling you that you're going to have 1/5 of an amount, and you've got to divide this 1/5 in half. And what will these fraction pieces equal out to? So one way of looking at this is 1/5 times 1/2, which is equal to 1/10, and that is how you're going to get 1/10 piece. You have now taken 1/5 and divided it into half, and that's how you get 1/10. So what you want to think about here is that when you're looking at this, the fraction the tile that you would place here would be 1/10. And how many of those 1/10 would you use? You would use 2 to make 1/5, and therefore 1/5 divided by 2 is equal to 1/10. Another way of looking at that, if you wanted to draw a picture of that, would you have a whole piece here? You'd have 1/5, so you would divide this into 5 pieces. And then the 2 that represents here would be dividing each one of these pieces into 2 parts. And then when you come back and count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you have 10 total pieces, which is my denominator. And I want to know how much is one of those pieces, so the numerator is 1. So looking at these two, they're asking you, are these statements true or false? So let's look at this as a division problem and see. So the whole number, when a whole number is greater than 1, is divided by. So when it says divided by, that means the number that comes after. So divided by a unit fraction, this 1/3 is my unit fraction. So my whole number has to be 15. So when my whole number is divided by a unit fraction, the quotient, which becomes 45 in this particular problem, is always greater than the dividend. And the dividend is 15. And is the quotient bigger than the dividend? It is, this statement is a true statement. This will always happen. When you're dividing a whole number by a unit fraction, you're always going to get a quotient that is larger than the dividend. In this next problem here at the bottom, when a unit fraction is less than 1, so the unit fraction is now going to be starting this problem as 1/3, and it is divided by, which is the division sign, and divided by a whole number, so here is your 15 here, by a whole number greater than 1, the quotient, which in this case is 1/45, is always greater than the dividend. And it is 1/45 greater than 1/3? It is not. 1/45 is not greater than 1/3, and therefore this statement is actually false, to show that when you get a fraction, the fraction here that starts it is going to be still greater, is actually going to be greater than the quotient, and your quotient is going to be a fraction answer. So those are the two things that I want you to remember. Okay, so I hope you guys had a great time. Just to let you know that the secret word today is Maine, as in the state of Maine, M-A-I-N-E. Make sure that you are putting the secret word on your weekly challenge. So you want to go and check the weekly challenge. The new one is there. It is number 27. Check your weekly challenge and then go to independent practice. Do the practice problems, do a few of them, and then check your answers with the answer key to make sure that you understand how to do the division of these division problems with fractions. And then do the homework. Make sure you correct it first. And when you're done correcting it, scan both of the pages and submit both the front and the back into Schoology for full credit. And again, we're going to go over this again in Schoology for you. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a great day. Looking forward to seeing your faces after this 1 week of break, and all the best.